What is going on, everybody? Been a diehard Pistons fan since '03 and starting to get very optimistic about this Pistons team. The Detroit Pistons are, of course, off for 5 or 6 more days during the All-Star break. We're sitting at 29 and 26, 3 games over 500. So I wanted to make a video talking about the remainder of the regular season. We're going to go through, we're going to talk about what's left on the schedule, what the schedule's shaping up to look like, and some important games that will be coming up. And then we're going to go through 3 things that I expect to see as we close out the regular season. And at the very back half, I'll talk about where I think we'll predict to have our record sitting as the season concludes. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the remainder of the season schedule. So I have kind of dived into this and looked into what we have left. And I think that it's a pretty clear pattern of it's going to be difficult and then pretty easy and then pretty hard depending on what other team situations are looking at to close out the year. Of course, it's the NBA. Any team can beat any other team on any given night. But when you zoom out and look at it from a broader perspective, from a higher level, you can definitely kind of predict what kind of stretches might be difficult and what stretches might be a little bit forgiving. So right now, as we get back into the swing of things next week, our first game back will be on Friday against the San Antonio Spurs. And the rest of February is going to be pretty difficult here as we have to play against the Spurs and then the Hawks and then the Clippers and then the Celtics and the Nuggets to finish out February. So all 5 of these games are going to be against pretty solid teams and it's not going to be easy. But thankfully, once we get into March, things start to break and we get one of the more forgiving months that we're going to have all season, to be honest, because we have to play Brooklyn and then Utah, which are both going to be tanking. And then we get the Clippers again on the road. And then staying out west, we're going to see Golden State and Portland. So we do have one more good West Coast trip, but thankfully it's actually going to be a few of the more mediocre teams out west as we have to see Utah and Portland. And then Golden State and the Clippers are definitely not anything too crazy. Once we get back home, the rest of March, we do get Washington twice in a row, which will be a great opportunity to win back-to-back games at home against the team that has the worst record in the league. And then, of course, we do have OKC, which will be difficult. And then we get New Orleans, Miami, Dallas, New Orleans again, San Antonio, which pretty much wraps up our March and is kind of just run-of-the-mill. And then that's where things get pretty difficult. These last 10 games or so of the year are going to be tough, assuming that these teams don't have seeding locked up, because we have to play against Cleveland and then Minnesota and then OKC, which are all very good teams. And then we get Toronto, which won't be so bad, hopefully. And then we have to see Memphis, Sacramento, Knicks, and then the Bucks twice to conclude the year. So really, when you look at it, the rest of February, pretty good teams. And then for the most of March, we have a pretty forgiving schedule, relatively speaking. And then right towards the very end of March and rest of the year, we do have some pretty tough games on the schedule, but it will be pretty nice if maybe we can get down here to the last 4 or 5 games. We have to play Milwaukee twice. Would be cool if maybe they have a seed confirmed and locked up and don't have any movement, any way they can go up or down. Maybe they rest Giannis, maybe they rest Dame. Who knows? But from a high level perspective, the biggest takeaway really is the fact that it's going to be pretty tough to finish out February. March won't be so bad. And then the end of March through April, it's kind of a coin flip depending on where teams are sitting in the standings, but could be pretty tough. So I want to talk about 3 different things that I expect to see for the rest of the year from the team. And the first one is going to be Ausar Thompson increasing or continuing to increase his role. Ausar Thompson, of course, came back from a health scare, finally got back into action, took a pretty long while to ramp up his minutes, but over the last 7 or 8 games, Ausar has been playing more minutes than he has all season and has been impacting games at a higher level than he has all season. He has been playing the best basketball of his short NBA career, and I do not expect that to change for the remainder of the year. If anything, I will expect him to play even more minutes and play even a bigger role than what he has been currently. He has been huge on the defensive end since he stepped foot in the NBA, and offensively, despite still not being able to shoot it, he's starting to figure it out. It has been 8 games in a row where he has scored over 10 points, and I expect to see that trend continue. So the next thing that I do expect to see is I think Cade will get a 50-point game. Cade's career high right now is either 43 or 45, something along those lines. And I think Cade's finally going to have a game where he goes for 50. I think that right now, Cade has been able to do what he's been able to do with a lot of double coverage, getting two sent at him pretty often. But every once in a while, we'll bump into a team that just decides to play him one-on-one. And I think that will happen again. And I think he will probably have a breakout game. I mean, he's already had a bunch of breakout games, but you get what I mean. I think he will finally go get a 50-point game and get his career high. I think that the game against Dallas relatively recently, Cade saw a lot of single coverage and got up to 40. I think something like that will happen again, and it will be a fun game to watch. I'm pretty sure that'll happen. Players of Cade's caliber typically, historically, don't have career highs like 43, 45, especially in the modern NBA. I know SGA's career high was kind of freakishly low for a long time, but I think Cade will get a 50 ball and probably have one or two more games that kind of gets the entire NBA broader community getting some eyes onto him. That's already happened to some degree, but I think it's going to continue to happen, and I think he'll probably have one or two games where he really, really puts it on. And the last thing is going to be a bout of adversity. That is just the reality of the situation. We have had a pretty great year so far, and there has not been too many bouts of adversity. I would say the biggest three adversity moments we have had was right at the start of the year when we had to play against 5 or 6 really good teams to start the year, and we started off 1-5, and I felt like they reacted to that very well. We also had a good little 3-game losing streak towards the end of January, which was a bit annoying, and then also a small bout of adversity when we had back-to-back losses on game winners from Trae Young and Darius Garland. But I would not be surprised whatsoever if there becomes a time between now and the end of the season where the Pistons lose maybe 3, 4, 5 games in a row, and a little bit of panic starts to set in. So far this year, whenever they have had situations where adversity has came up, they have handled it very well. So I do expect for them to be able to bounce back from it in a good way. But the fact of the matter is that in an 82-game season, when you're a team like the Pistons that, as great as we have been, first expectations, we're still 3 games above 500. There's typically points in time throughout the season where things just don't go your way for a solid week or two. And don't be surprised when that happens, and do your best not to panic, because the Pistons have done a great job this year of answering that adversity. So that's pretty much it. I guess the one other thing I'll speak on quickly is the possibility of Jaden Ivey returning. I really don't have much to say because there isn't a bunch of information out there. It's still up in the air. I would say it's a coin flip on if he does come back, if we're pushing in towards the playoffs, but that's just me guesstimating based off of what I've heard from the reporters. He is able to do weight-bearing exercise now. I've seen video clips of him doing pool workouts, things along those lines. He's now in a walking boot, so don't really know what that'll entail. I'm really not depending on it because I feel like if he does come back in, say, April, it's going to be pretty hard to get him ramped up to full game speed 100% by the time we get to the playoffs, but I do think it's possible. So my final prediction for a record, I will say, is going to be right around the ballpark of 41 to 44 wins. Currently, we are on pace for around 42, 43 wins, and I do think that we will continue to keep that pace. I would be pretty surprised if they are able to improve that and win 45 or 46 games, just because there are a lot of tough games on the schedule going forward, especially the last 10 games of the year. So I'll just play it safe and conservative and say that we win about 43 games and hopefully keep that 6th seed. So let me know what you guys think, and we'll catch up soon.